both of you, a pleasure to have you on this podcast episode, whatever you want to call this thing. But the key is, I love this movie. We're going to skip all the pleasantries because I have so much to ask about you guys. But this film, I think I remember reading about it in 2006 or 2007. How long has it been in the works for?
I mean, well, this is really kind of a larger release. We had like a theatrical run in 2014, kind of limited theatrical, and we released it then in 2014. But yeah, now it's going wider, more international. Yeah, and we were doing all the film festivals around that time leading up to that. So,
but yeah, back in like 2005, I think was the kickoff, the meeting of the minds there.
Yeah, I remember because back then I was living in this town on Long Island called Huntington that is pretty much one of the like 3 metropolitan towns in Long Island, New York. And I saw a screening at this Art Center YMCA thing. And then fast forward to me getting the announcement for this movie this month and go, wait, that's the same movie? That kind of thing. So seeing this whole thing, it absolutely lives up to the hype. I want you to take the compliment. There's no like, but, because what I feel that you guys accomplished is what few rock and roll related documentaries have accomplished. And that's, you got everybody just about to speak on the record. Everybody is happy on the record. There's no one who hates each other, disputing royalties or money or that kind of thing on the record. There's the obligatory Dave Grohl participation, because what would a rock and roll documentary be in 2021 without Dave Grohl in there? So did you know the story of the Descendents before you started making it?
Not really. I mean, sort of. We knew like the same like 3 stories that everybody knew about Bill fishing, and there were certain things that you'd heard. It was almost lore, I just want to say I remember that Huntington screening. That was pretty good. I was there. Yeah, that was awesome.
Good memories.
Yeah. But yeah, I mean, it was a thing where there was a void. There was no movie about these guys, and they're such an important band in like the punk rock landscape and beyond, really. I mean, you mentioned Dave Grohl, and it's like, yeah, of course, you want to try to, documentaries, you try to get a little star power when you can, but it's not like his is forced. I mean, he's the first one to say, like, I wouldn't play drums if it weren't for Bill Stevenson. So it was very fitting to have him. And but yeah, I mean, we didn't know a whole lot. We just knew what everybody else kind of knew. And we got to know Stefan, the guitar player. We got to know him in 2005. I spent a lot of time with him recording at his studio. Deedle and I went there, and that's kind of, we started learning a little bit more, and then it was just kind of like, yeah, this would be a really awesome project to work on.
Yeah, all the songs you'd want from Descendants, and all, you hear them and you see them in the movie. How much work was needed to actually clear footage? And I have a follow-up question related to that came from a music supervisor who's a diehard fan of this and excited for your movie.
Yeah, I mean, that was probably our biggest, thing we had to learn all about and go through that process. And it was very challenging. I'm sure because of the question that's coming, but
yeah,
yes, that was a big learning experience for us. We got a couple of additional producers to help us, Karen Capitosto and Stephanie Straw. Karen is a big shot filmmaker now. She's had a few like Academy Award nominations for films she's worked on, and they helped us a lot. And thankfully her husband was a huge Descendants fan, so she kind of latched onto our team and helped us get to that final push to get everything licensed. But yeah, a ton of work doing that.
Yeah, the question that comes from my friend James Lance, who he did a lot of the clearances for Beavis and Butthead, who we briefly see a cameo from in the movie, was if you had, and you can say next question, I can read your mind. Did you have some SST related difficulties?
That was a challenge, but ultimately, with Greg Ginn, who owns all the SST catalog from Black Flag, it's you just have to know who to talk to. And we we just showed up at a Black Flag show when they were kind of doing those. He kind of got the band, a version of the band back together and was touring while we were trying to get all that done. We just showed up at the club early and started talking to him, and he basically told us who we needed to get in touch with. We were trying for like a year, and it's just Greg's just not really hands-on, and yet he's still kind of controlling it all. So essentially you just got to know who his lawyer is, and once you're dealing with that guy, like, you can get things done.
Smart guys. I think one of the biggest takeaways that you have, or at least I have from this movie, is everyone related to the Descendants is really smart. Everyone is really high IQ, even though if you're an outsider to punk rock, you wouldn't listen to the music and go, those are smart people. So kudos to you guys for actually showing the intelligence of everybody involved in dispelling that shows my lack of intelligence, dispelling the stereotypes about intelligence and all that. So you guys have on camera, showing my age here as somebody in their late 30s, the way that I discovered the Descendants was a combination of Face to Face covering them on the Big Choice album, and then them being on 120 Minutes with Matt Pinfield for the Everything Sucks album. So I came on board a little, quote, late, 95, 96 and all that. When did both of you get on board for the Descendants?
Well, I came into All first in like 93 Percolator album, and traced it back to the Descendants, and then kind of moved forward with them, breaking things on. And I remember getting, Percolator, and I actually didn't get the early All records. I went to Descendants, and then Breaking Things came out right after this, and then it was a new singer, and I was like, what's going on here? But yeah, that's kind of when I came. I had an older brother who was, into punk rock, and so I was able to get my hands on his stuff. At the ripe age of like whatever I was then, 14, something like that.
Got it.
And I was similar to you, kind of that mid 90s. Yeah, I was getting into punk rock stuff, Face to Face and other stuff like that. And but it was before Everything Sucks was out, and so I got into Pummel first, and then kind of the older Descendant, went backwards like Matt, and then Everything Sucks came out, and that was kind of when they reemerged, right when punk rock was hitting, kind of in that mid 90s, that whatever second wave or third wave, whatever they call it.
I used to work at a used CD store, and I remember Deedle coming in one day and buying every All record, right? Or you traded for like much worse albums.
Yeah. And Shrub, who was a cool punk rock dude, was like, man, you're like getting all our good stuff and you're giving me crap. I was trading for getting All records and Descendants records.
Well, one of the things that's addressed in the movie, without spoiling anything, because it's history, assuming everyone was either a fan of the band or goes to the Wikipedia, is the stupid debate that people have of, well, I don't like All, I only like the Descendants. And you go, it's 3/4 the same thing in the same genre, and it's melodic and it's great. So it is so dumbfounding to me that anyone can not like All but love the Descendants. So kudos to you guys for also exploring that and explaining that and getting the perspective of the different singers from All.
Yeah, I mean, that, and I don't know how much people are like hate the other one. They maybe prefer a certain singer or something, but there are people, I think a lot of it was like, especially the older dudes who were into Descendants, and then they turn into All. Like, that's how like Fat Mike and, even Dave Grohl, they were way into Descendants. And then when All came along, they were doing their own thing and didn't really follow them. And so now looking back, they don't know the All stuff, even though, as most of us know, like it is every bit as good, and it is the evolution of the Descendants. Descendants Everything Sucks would not be what it was, had All not existed through all that. But yeah, it's an interesting, weird little thing. We both kind of treat it as like this the same band, so it's kind of Bill and the musicians, the singer, of course, but that's album to album, Yeah,
the only 3 bands I can really think of that have that kind of, I hate this new singer guy. I love the old stuff, or vice versa. It's kind of Descendents, Van Halen, AC/DC. No other bands that I can think of kind of get that polarizing argument. And any others you can think of? And I know I'm putting you both on the spot there.
I don't know. Black Flag might have a little of that.
How did I miss that really obvious one right there? And you do have some good Rollins footage in there, and you do have Chuck participating, and both Chucks. Oh, no, Keith and Chuck. I remember seeing them both. So it seems like you pretty much got every single person that you wanted to go on the record for this movie.
Yeah, I mean, by and large, I would have loved to have gotten Matt Groening just to kind of finally, like, you know, clear the record on the Allroy Bart Simpson thing that's kind of always been in the Descendants lore, but
I'm sure his lawyers wouldn't have probably would have asked for the footage after the interview. So
yeah, it only came out 5 years ago or so that Homer Simpson's sideburns had the MG for Matt Groening drawn into that.
Oh,
so maybe that's protecting the trademark right there.
Yeah, right.
But I don't think that most people know about the Allroy Simpsons tie-in at all. So it's not brought up in the movie. Was it the decision to not bring it up because you couldn't get him on record?
Yeah, we had it. It might be in the bonus stuff. I can't remember.
I think we addressed there. It's in some of the bonus stuff that will be also released now with this. I mean, we have it on the Blu-ray stuff, but I think they're going to have it on the iTunes release that you purchase with all that bonus stuff. But yeah,
cool.
It's I think we address it. It's still, you know, we still don't have the definitive, you know, Matt Groening, because
Allroy does predate Bart Simpson, you know.
Sure.
And Matt Groening was a fan of the Descendants, and he was writing for one of the LA like music magazines in the early 80s, and he reviewed Milo Goes to College like in 83. So like he was a fan, and
but yeah. We're not charging any. I mean, unconscious, if
right.
anything.
Yeah.
If anything. Yeah.
Yeah. Matt Groening's musical taste is known to be really good. The story goes that Duff McKagan from Guns N' Roses is the source of Duff beer, and he signed something away early. I know he's a big fan of The Residents and I think maybe NRBQ. So it wouldn't surprise me if Descendants were also in his vernacular. But kudos also go to you guys for sneaking in one of my favorite worst music videos ever into there, and that is D.D. King's music video. Is that intended to be kind of an Easter egg? Because I didn't get like what that was representing, like the changing times.
Well, it was what's happening to punk rock, you know, right? And when Descendants was becoming all, and like New Kids on the Block, it's not New Kids on the Block that they were punk, but it was just what was happening culturally. It's like, yeah, even the freaking Ramones, like, putting out like his hip hop record in it.
Yeah, D.D. King is the gift that never stops giving, unfortunately.
And there we found that old infomercial that was literally one of those like almost like Time Life books music things. It was like, let's get punked. And it was like such a bad, like, I don't know, just it's kind of like punk had run its course from that 80s era in the late 80s. And
yeah, I mean, punk has its comical peaked kind of moments, like for example the Misfits being a professional wrestling tag team or stable. That's kind of when it gets a little too bloated with what punk is and all that. But yeah. I love the fact that you show punk rock for the good, the bad, the ugly, but in the case of Descendants, the quality never dipped, even with all. So the music supervisor friend who had the imposing kind of question about SST before James, he wanted to know what each of your favorite albums by All is.
Oh man, it's hard, you know. I love Percolator. I love Scott. I mean, but you know, the late Chad stuff, Pummel on. I mean, it's all amazing. It's hard to say. And Dave Smalley, I don't want to leave him out. Prez was a great record, and you know, it's really what mood I'm in, and I can go song by song even. You know, it's like so it's albums are hard. Just you got to catch me on the right day, you know.
Yeah, I'm the same, but I can probably say Pummel just because that was my entry point. And and when whatever, I was 15 or whatever, so I was just over and over and over listen to that record. So there's probably a nostalgia thing as well. So but yeah.
Good choices. And having done such a comprehensive documentary like this, are there plans to do another documentary on any band, or one and done, you went out on your peak, that's good?
I think for a while it was a one and done mindset, but it's one of those things. It took so long, and it took so much. There was so much learning involved that once you get to the end, even though you're a little burned out on like, okay, that was a lot, you also go, oh man, I could do this a lot better the next time. I learned so much. So, I've been working on a movie with Scott Reynolds, actually, kind of like a concert film performance of his. So I'm editing that right now. So hopefully, matter of fact, we might be officially announcing it. He has a new record coming out in 1 week from today. So I'm going to have a trailer up by then. Wow. But yeah, so that's what I've been working on.
And I've been helping produce a doc on the band King's X.
Wow.
I don't know.
Wow. King's X is criminally underrated, but in a different way than the Descendents, because they have more time on a major label. There's more famous people who go on record talking about how amazing King's X is. Wow. What's the toughest part about working with King's X? Is it licensing from all the different labels and that?
Yeah, that is an absolute mess as well, because they were on multiple labels and labels that got bought by other labels, and then they sold off their publishing throughout the years to make money to a bunch of different other places and publishers. So it's a big mess in that regard. And they have really good management, but tough management. So they took a while to build trust with their management.
I really look forward to seeing that. Are you also a fan of King's X, or is that just Deedle's thing?
I've only seen them once, and didn't I go to like some historic show, Deedle, because he took me to see King's X finally, and it was a show where like the guitar rig like blew up before the show or something.
Yeah, like Ty Tabor's guitar rig totally went down, and he played acoustic the whole. I mean, they still played full band, but he was playing an acoustic guitar, and they played the entire show that way. And so yeah, that's like a very, very kind of known show. So yeah.
Cool. Well, closing question for both of you, and it has nothing to do with the excellent movie that we have been talking about the whole time. And that's, do you have a TV show recommendation that you can pass along to someone who needs a new show to start?
Man, I've just finished up Crashing. I don't know if you saw that. I know it's not new, but I started it when it came out and kind of like fell off of it, but it's really good. I had 3 seasons of that. So that I recommend that one. That's good.
Really refreshing look into New York City stand-up and being a warm-up comic.
Yeah. Totally.
Deedle, yourself there?
So I watched a show called See, just SEE. It's on Apple's streaming service, and it was one of the most original ideas I've seen in a long time. Kind of a post-apocalyptic sci-fi, but like nobody can see, everybody's blind, and the world like has to kind of relearn how to exist. It's a really cool show.
That was not on my radar. You think about when we were all growing up, there was no new TV between May and September, and then everything went dark right before and after Sweeps Week, and we knew every show that was on TV. And now there could be amazing shows like that I've never heard of, and vice versa. So thanks for those picks. But
how about you? Give us one.
Did you ever hear Brockmire?
Yes.
Yeah.
Did you watch it, or you just heard it's good?
I haven't seen it.
It's Hank Azaria from The Simpsons, speaking of Matt Groening and The Simpsons, in kind of an Eastbound and Down Kenny Powers kind of way, except he's a disgraced baseball announcer that's trying to get back up to the big leagues. And this last season of the show, without spoiling anything, takes place in a future that may not be too off from what happened with COVID. So when my wife and I were watching it in March and April, you'd get the extra chills and emotion because who knew what was going to happen with the pandemic. So really good, funny, sometimes a little sad kind of show there. Does that suffice?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, seriously, thank you both for spotlighting one of the greatest rock bands ever in such a positive, wonderful light that the band can embrace. So looking forward to everything that's coming from both of you in the near future.
Awesome, man.
Thank you, guys.
Paltrocast.